She donated her kidney to save her boyfriend's life. What he did after will break your heart. I woke up from surgery missing a kidney and believing I'd saved the man I loved. 6 weeks later, he broke up with me via text message while I was still recovering. 3 months after that, I saw the wedding photos on Instagram, him marrying someone else, living the healthy life my kidney had given him. My name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I'm a cardiac surgeon. I save lives for a living, but I couldn't save myself from making the biggest mistake of my life, giving away part of my body to someone who saw it as a transaction, not a sacrifice. This is the story of how I learned that love isn't measured by what you're willing to give up. It's measured by what the other person values in return. And sometimes, the greatest act of love can reveal the deepest betrayal. I met James Crawford 4 years ago at a hospital fundraiser. I was 32, focused on my career, not really looking for a relationship. James was 35, charming, successful, a corporate lawyer with a corner office and a smile that could disarm anyone. "You're a surgeon," he'd said when we were introduced. "That's impressive. Most beautiful women I meet are in marketing or PR." It should have been a red flag, the way he compartmentalized beautiful and accomplished as if they were mutually exclusive. But I was flattered. James was attractive, successful, interested in me. In a world where I spent 14-hour days in an operating room, that felt rare. We started dating. He was attentive at first, flowers, nice dinners, thoughtful texts. He'd show up at the hospital after my long shifts with takeout and wine. He'd listen to me talk about my surgeries, my patients, my research. "You're incredible," he'd say. "You literally hold people's hearts in your hands. How do you handle that pressure?" "You get used to it," I'd tell him. "Medicine is about doing what needs to be done, even when it's hard." I didn't know then that I was describing exactly what I'd eventually do for him. 6 months into our relationship, James's health started declining. He'd been managing kidney disease since his 20s, genetic polycystic kidney disease, the kind that slowly destroys your kidneys until dialysis or transplant is the only option. "I've been on the transplant list for 2 years, he told me one night. "But the wait is long, 5, maybe 7 years, and I'm getting worse." He'd started dialysis 3 times a week. I watched him deteriorate, the fatigue, the nausea, the way his skin took on a grayish tinge. He couldn't work full-time anymore, couldn't exercise, could barely function. It was devastating watching someone I loved suffer. Knowing my medical knowledge made me hyper-aware of every symptom, every progression, every grim statistic. "There has to be something we can do," I said. "There isn't unless," he looked at me carefully, "unless I had a living donor, someone willing to give me a kidney." The implication hung in the air. "Have you asked your family?" I knew James's parents were alive, that he had 2 siblings. "My parents are too old, my brother's not a match, my sister," he paused. "We're not close, she won't even get tested." "What about friends?" "Sarah, who's going to volunteer to give up an organ. People say they care, but when it comes to actually making a sacrifice." He trailed off, looking defeated. That night I lay awake thinking about it. I was a surgeon. I understood the risks, the recovery, the long-term implications. A kidney donation was major surgery, but people lived full, normal lives with one kidney, and James was suffering. I loved him, at least I thought I did, and isn't love about sacrifice, about doing hard things for the people who matter? 3 days later, I scheduled an appointment to get tested. I was a perfect match. Same blood type, good tissue compatibility, excellent health. The transplant coordinator was pleased. "This is wonderful news," she said. "Living donor transplants have much better outcomes than deceased donor transplants. You're giving him an incredible gift." A gift, that's how everyone framed it. A gift of life, an act of love, the ultimate sacrifice. When I told James, he cried. Actually cried, holding me, telling me how much he loved me, how he couldn't believe I'd do this for him. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you," he said. "I promise. You're saving my life, Sarah. I'll never forget that." My parents were less enthusiastic. "Sarah, this is a major decision," my father said. He was a retired physician himself, understood the medical realities. "You'll be giving up an organ. Yes, people live with one kidney, but there are risks. What if something happens to your remaining kidney later? What if you need it?" "Dad, I'm healthy. The screening was thorough. The risks are minimal." "It's not just the medical risks," my mother added gently. "Honey, you've been dadding James for less than a year. That's not a long time to know someone." "I know him well enough. He's a good man, he's suffering, and I can help." "But what if things don't work out between you two?" Mom looked worried. "You'll have given him a kidney, and then what?" "Then I'll have saved someone's life. Isn't that what I do every day in the OR? How is this different?" "Because in the OR you're not personally involved," Dad said quietly. "You're not giving up part of yourself. Sarah, we're not saying don't do this. We're saying think carefully. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons." I was annoyed by their concern. They didn't understand. They hadn't watched James struggle through dialysis, hadn't seen his pain, hadn't felt the helplessness of loving someone who was suffering when you had the power to help. I was a surgeon, I fixed problems. This was a problem I could fix. My best friend Rachel was even more direct. "Are you insane?" she said when I told her. "Sarah, you barely know this guy." "I've known him for a year. We're talking about moving in together." "Talking about it. You're not even living together yet, and you're giving him a kidney." "He needs it. I can provide it. Why wouldn't I?" "Because it's irreversible. Because you're literally cutting out part of your body for someone you've been dadding for 12 months. What if he's not who you think he is?" "I know who he is." "Do you, really? Or are you in love with the idea of being the hero, the surgeon who saves her boyfriend? Is this about him or about you?" That hurt because there was truth in it. I did like being capable, being the one who could fix things. But I genuinely believed I loved James, believed this was the right thing to do. "I'm doing this," I told Rachel firmly, "with or without your support." "Then I hope I'm wrong about him," she said quietly. "I really, really hope I'm wrong." The surgery was scheduled for a Thursday in March. The night before, James took me to dinner. "I've been thinking," he said, holding my hand across the table. "After you recover, after we're both healthy again, I want us to get married." My heart soared. This was it. Confirmation that we were building a future together, that my sacrifice meant something, was part of something bigger. "Are you proposing?" I asked, smiling. "Not officially, not yet. I want to do it properly with a ring and everything. But yes, Sarah, I want to marry you. I want to spend my life with you. You're giving me that life. The least I can do is share it with you." I should have noticed the transactional language. The least I can do, like he was repaying a debt, not building a partnership. But I didn't notice. I was too happy, too convinced that everything was perfect. The surgery went smoothly. 6 hours in the OR, 3 to remove my kidney, 3 to transplant it into James. I woke up in recovery with a line of staples across my abdomen and a morphine drip that made everything fuzzy. My first coherent thought was, is James okay? The nurse smiled. "Your kidney is functioning beautifully. Mr. Crawford is doing well." Relief flooded through me. It had worked. James was going to be healthy again. I spent 3 days in the hospital. James was in a room 2 floors up, recovering from his surgery. We weren't allowed to see each other initially, separate care teams, different recovery protocols. But he sent flowers with a note. "Thank you for my life, I love you, Jay." My parents visited. Dad checked my vitals with a professional eye. Mom fussed over my comfort. They didn't say, "I told you so," but I could see the concern in their eyes. "How are you feeling?" Dad asked. "Sore but okay. The pain is manageable." And James? Good, his kidney function is already improving. The transplant coordinator said it's one of the best outcomes they've seen. That's wonderful. Mom squeezed my hand. We're proud of you, honey, even if we were worried. What you did took courage. Rachel visited too, brought me books and chocolate. You did it, she said. You actually went through with it. I did, and James is going to be healthy again. That's what matters. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck, but worth it. Sarah, Rachel hesitated, promise me something. If anything feels wrong with James, with the relationship, with anything, promise you'll tell me. Promise you won't ignore red flags just because you gave him a kidney. Nothing's going to feel wrong. We're getting married. He said that last night at dinner. After I recover, he's going to propose officially. Rachel's face was unreadable. Okay, I hope you're happy. I will be. We both will be. I was discharged after 3 days. James was discharged the next day. The transplant team's instructions were clear. I needed 6 weeks minimum for recovery. Light activity only. No lifting. No strenuous exercise. No work. 6 weeks off from surgery was torture. I was used to 14-hour days, constant activity, the satisfaction of fixing complex medical problems. Sitting at home, unable to do much more than walk around the block, was maddening. James recovered faster expected, since kidney recipients generally bounce back quicker than donors. Within 2 weeks, his color had returned. His energy was back. He looked healthier than I'd seen him in a year. I feel amazing, he told me, grinning. It's like I'm alive again, really alive, not just surviving. That's wonderful. I was happy for him, even though I was still exhausted, still in pain, still dealing with the reality that I'd undergone major surgery. I can't wait to get back to normal, he continued. Back to work, back to the gym, back to actually living. The doctor said you should take it slow. I know, but I feel good, Sarah, really good. He did seem good, better every day. While I was still struggling with fatigue and pain, James was bouncing back to his pre-illness self. Which was fine. That was the goal. I'd given him my kidney so he could be healthy. But something started to feel off. James visited me frequently those first 2 weeks, brought me meals, kept me company, helped around my apartment. He was attentive and grateful. But by week 3, his visits became less frequent. He was catching up at work, meeting with clients, getting back to his routine. I understand, I said when he canceled plans for the 3rd time that week. You need to rebuild your life. I'm glad you're healthy enough to do that. You're the best, he said, kissing my forehead. So understanding. Most women would be angry that I'm not here constantly. Most women hadn't just given him a kidney. By week 4, I saw James maybe twice a week. Brief visits, always on his schedule. He'd show up, chat for an hour, then leave to meet friends or attend work functions. I feel guilty leaving you here, he'd say. But the doctor said you need rest anyway, right? So it's probably better that I'm not disturbing you constantly. It was logical, reasonable, but it felt wrong. I called Rachel. Am I being paranoid? James is barely here, and I feel like I shouldn't be bothered by it, but I am. You just gave him a kidney, Sarah. You're recovering from major surgery. He should be there. But he's healthy now. He needs to rebuild his life. You're part of his life, or you're supposed to be. Maybe I'm being nitty. I'm not used to being the patient. Maybe I don't know how to handle not being the strong one. Or maybe your instincts are telling you something's wrong, and you should listen. I didn't want to listen. I wanted to believe everything was fine. Week 6 came. My follow-up appointment showed I was healing well. The surgeon cleared me to return to work gradually, starting with consultations and simple procedures. I was relieved. Being useful again felt essential to my identity. I texted James, got cleared by the doctor, healing well, can you come over tonight? I want to celebrate. His response came 3 hours later. That's great. Can't tonight though, work thing tomorrow. Tomorrow came, he canceled again. Sorry, something came up, this weekend for sure. The weekend arrived. Saturday morning I got a text. Sarah, can we talk? 4 words that changed everything. Of course, come over. I think we should meet somewhere neutral. Coffee shop near your place, 2 p.m. Neutral, my stomach dropped. Nothing good started with neutral location. I met him at the coffee shop, my incision still tender, my energy still not fully returned. James looked healthy, vibrant, alive. He also looked uncomfortable. Sarah, I don't know how to say this. He couldn't meet my eyes. Just say it. I think we should take a break. The words didn't compute. A break, what do you mean? I mean, I need some space, time to figure things out. The transplant was intense. My whole life has changed. I'm different now, and I need to figure out who I am with this new lease on life. I gave you that lease on life. I know, and I'm grateful, so grateful. But Sarah, that's part of the problem. I feel this massive pressure to be grateful all the time, to owe you, and I can't build a relationship on debt. It's not debt, it's love. Is it, or is it obligation? He finally looked at me. I care about you, but I don't know if I love you or if I just felt I had to love you because you saved my life. I felt like I'd been punched. You said you wanted to marry me. The night before surgery, you said. I know what I said. I meant it at the time, or I thought I did. But Sarah, I was dying, I was desperate, and you were offering me life. Maybe I confused gratitude with love. Maybe you're confusing freedom with abandonment. I gave you health, and now you don't need me anymore. That's not fair. Isn't it? My voice rose. Other customers looked over. I lowered my voice. James, I gave you my kidney 6 weeks ago. I'm still recovering. And you're breaking up with me at a coffee shop because what? You need space. I'm sorry. I know the timing is terrible. The timing is terrible. The timing is insane. If you decided you didn't love me 6 months ago, fine. That's dating. But you let me give you a kidney thinking we had a future. You accepted my organ while planning to leave. I wasn't planning to leave. I thought I loved you. But now I'm healthy and I can think clearly, and I realize we're not right for each other. We were right for each other when you needed something from me. Sarah, please don't make this ugly. It's already ugly, James. It became ugly the moment you accepted a life-saving gift from someone you weren't sure you loved. He stood up. I'm sorry, I really am. I'll always be grateful for what you did, but I can't be with you out of obligation. That's not fair to either of us. He left, just walked out of the coffee shop and out of my life, leaving me sitting there with a healing surgical scar and a shattered heart. I called Rachel from the coffee shop, crying so hard I could barely speak. He left. He broke up with me. 6 weeks after I gave him my kidney, he broke up with me. Oh my God, Sarah, I'm coming over. He said he needed space, that he was confused, that he couldn't be with me out of obligation. That son of a bitch. Rachel arrived at my apartment 30 minutes later. She held me while I cried, then went into practical mode. Okay, first, we're calling your doctor. You're under severe emotional stress and you just had major surgery. We need to make sure you're physically okay. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're devastated. Emotional trauma affects physical healing. She was right. My blood pressure was elevated. I wasn't sleeping. I could barely eat. The stress was impacting my recovery. Second, Rachel continued, we're going to talk about what you're feeling. Not what you think you should feel, but what you actually feel. I feel like an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're a person who loved someone and made a sacrifice. A sacrifice he didn't value. No, he didn't, and that's on him, not you. I gave him a kidney, Rachel, a kidney, part of my body, something I can never get back, and he left me 6 weeks later, 6 weeks. I know. What if you were right? What if I did this to be the hero? What if I was so focused on being the surgeon who saves everyone that I didn't see he wasn't worth saving? James is alive. You saved his life. That has value, even if he's too much of a selfish asshole to appreciate it. But at what cost? I've lost an organ. I'm compromised if I ever have kidney problems in the future. I put my surgical career at risk. And for what? For someone who couldn't even wait until I was fully healed before leaving. Rachel didn't have an answer. There was no answer. I'd made an irreversible choice for someone who turned out to be temporary. The next 8 weeks were brutal. I returned to work, threw myself into surgery, used work as an escape. My colleagues knew I'd donated a kidney but not the breakup. I didn't tell them. Didn't want the pity or the judgment. I avoided social media. Didn't want to see James's posts, didn't want updates on his life. But Rachel showed me something 3 months after the breakup. Sarah, I don't want to show you this, but you need to see it. It was James's Instagram, a photo of him with a woman I didn't recognize. The caption, she said yes, marrying my best friend and the love of my life. The photo showed them at a fancy restaurant, James holding up the woman's hand, showing off an engagement ring. Posted 2 days ago. He's engaged, I said numbly. 3 months after breaking up with me, he's engaged. I'm so sorry. Who is she? Her name is Madison. I did some digging. She works at his law firm. They've been colleagues for years. Years? While James and I were dating, while he was on dialysis, while I was getting tested, while I was giving him my kidney, he'd been working with Madison. Do you think he was seeing her before? I asked. I don't know, maybe not physically, but emotionally. Maybe he was already checked out of your relationship before you donated. And he let me give him a kidney anyway. Yes, because he needed it, because I was a convenient match. And once he had what he needed, he was free to pursue the person he actually wanted. The realization hit me like a truck. I hadn't been his girlfriend. I'd been his donor, his medical solution, a means to an end. I spiraled for a few days, called in sick to work, stayed in bed, questioned every decision I'd ever made. Rachel finally staged an intervention. Okay, enough wallowing. Get up, shower, we're going out. I don't want to go out. Too bad. You're not going to let that asshole destroy you. You're a brilliant surgeon. You save lives. You're strong and capable, and you made one bad decision about one shitty guy. That doesn't define you. I gave him a kidney, Rachel. How do I move past that? Every day for the rest of my life, I'll wake up knowing I'm missing an organ because of him. No, every day for the rest of your life, you'll wake up knowing you were brave enough to make a sacrifice for someone you loved. The fact that he didn't deserve it doesn't make you stupid. It makes him unworthy. I should have listened to you, to my parents. Everyone told me to wait, to think carefully, and I didn't listen. Because you were in love, or you thought you were. Sarah, you can't blame yourself for caring about someone. The problem isn't that you loved him. The problem is that he was too selfish to see the value of what you gave. He's marrying her. They look so happy. He's using the life I gave him to build a future with someone else. Yes, and that's devastating and unfair and wrong. But you can either let that destroy you or you can rebuild. You're a surgeon. You know how to rebuild things. She was right. I was a surgeon. I fixed broken things. It was time to fix myself. I started therapy, found a counselor who specialized in medical trauma and relationship issues. Talking to Dr. Williams helped me process what had happened. You're grieving multiple losses, she explained. The relationship, yes, but also your sense of judgment, your feeling of being in control, your bodily autonomy, the vision of the future you thought you had. I thought I was saving him. Turns out I was just being used. Did James actively manipulate you, or did you see what you wanted to see? Both, maybe. He knew I loved him, he knew I wanted to help, and he let me even though he must have had doubts. Do you think he deliberately deceived you? I don't know. Maybe he deceived himself too. Maybe he really did think he loved me, and getting healthy just revealed that he didn't. Does that make it hurt less? No, if anything, it makes it worse. Because if he deliberately used me, I could be angry. But if he was just confused or mistaken or caught up in the intensity of being sick, then what? I can't even properly hate him. You can be angry about the outcome, even if the intention wasn't malicious. You can acknowledge that you made a decision based on love, and that decision didn't turn out the way you hoped. I'm a surgeon. I make life and death decisions every day. How did I get this so wrong? Because medical decisions are different from personal ones. In the OR, you have protocols, data, clinical trials. In love, you have feelings, hope, faith. You trusted those things and they failed you. That doesn't make you a bad surgeon or a bad person. It helped, slowly, over months it helped. A year after the donation, I was doing better. Not great, but functional. I'd thrown myself into my career, taken on more complex cases, published a paper on cardiac transplantation ethics. The irony wasn't lost on me. Then I got a message on LinkedIn from James. Sarah, I hope this message finds you well. I've been thinking about you lately and wanted to reach out. I know I hurt you and I'm sorry for how things ended. I hope you're doing well. I'd like to talk if you're open to it. James. I stared at the message for 3 days before responding. I'm not interested in reconnecting. I wish you well, but I need to move forward with my life. Please don't contact me again. Sarah. His response came an hour later. I understand, but I want you to know Madison and I are expecting a baby, a daughter. Because of you, because of what you gave me, I get to be a father. I get to have this life. I don't know how to thank you for that, but I am grateful. Every day. I closed my laptop and cried, not from sadness, but from the crushing irony. My kidney was going to help create and sustain new life. James would be a father. He'd have everything he wanted: health, marriage, family. And I would live the rest of my life with one kidney, with surgical scars, with the knowledge that I'd given him all of that. Rachel found me crying and read the message. He's unbelievable. He's actually telling you about his baby, like you're supposed to be happy for him. Maybe he thinks I should be. Maybe in his mind this proves it was all worth it, that I helped create this beautiful life. Except he stole that beautiful life from you. You should be building your future, having your family. Instead, you're here alone because you gave him a piece of yourself. I'm not alone. I have you, my parents, my career. But you don't have what you wanted: a partner, a family, the future you thought you were building. She was right. At 36, I'd started thinking about my own biological clock, about whether I wanted children, about what my future looked like. And I'd compromised that future by giving away an organ to someone who'd walked away. I'm writing this 2 years after the donation. 2 years since I gave James Crawford my kidney and my heart, and he kept one and threw away the other. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I could take it back. The answer is complicated. Do I regret saving someone's life? No. Even knowing how it turned out, I can't regret that another human being is alive and healthy because of what I did. Do I regret who I saved? Yes, every single day. James is living his life, married, father to a baby girl, successful career, healthy body. My kidney helped make all of that possible. And I'm living mine: successful career, but compromised health, no partner, no family, and a permanent scar that reminds me every day of what I gave up. The medical community talks about living kidney donors as heroes. Selfless, generous, brave, and maybe we are. But they don't talk about what happens when that sacrifice isn't valued, when the recipient moves on and the donor is left to process the loss alone. I've thought a lot about what went wrong, where my judgment failed, and I've come to some conclusions. First, I was in love with the idea of love more than I was actually in love with James. I saw his need, and I wanted to be the person who could meet it. That's not love, that's ego. Second, I ignored red flags because I was invested in the narrative. Once I'd decided James was worth saving, I couldn't let facts interfere with that story. Third, I confused sacrifice with commitment. I thought giving an organ proved our love was real. But love isn't proven by grand gestures. It's proven by daily choices, mutual respect, and equal partnership. James never saw me as a partner. He saw me as a solution to his problem. And once the problem was solved, he didn't need the solution anymore. Last month, I was giving a lecture at a medical conference about organ donation ethics. A young resident asked me, "Dr. Mitchell, you're a living kidney donor yourself. Would you encourage other medical professionals to consider living donation?" The room went quiet. Everyone knew my story, or at least the version that had circulated through the medical gossip network. I would encourage anyone considering living donation to be absolutely certain of their reasons, I said carefully. Donate because you've thoroughly considered the risks. Donate because you've evaluated the relationship and confirmed it's built on mutual respect and commitment. Donate because you're prepared for any outcome, including the possibility that the recipient may not remain in your life. But you don't regret your donation. I regret the circumstances. I regret not seeing the situation more clearly. But I don't regret that another human being is alive, even if that human being turned out to be someone who didn't deserve the sacrifice. After the lecture, a woman approached me, 50s, professional, confident. "Dr. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Patricia Wung. I'm a transplant nephrologist. I wanted to tell you, I think what you said was important. We push this narrative of living donation as pure altruism, and it is, but we don't prepare donors for the emotional complexity. For what happens when relationships change. For the grief that comes when a sacrifice isn't valued. Thank you, it's something I wish I'd understood better. I've been working on new donor screening protocols. Psychological evaluation, relationship assessment, long-term support systems. Would you be willing to consult on the project? Your perspective as both a surgeon and a donor would be invaluable." I agreed. If my experience could help develop better protections for future donors, if it could ensure other people thought more carefully before making irreversible decisions, then maybe it hadn't all been for nothing. 2 months ago, I went on a date. First one since James, a colleague from another hospital, someone I'd known professionally for years. His name was David. He was kind, funny, respected my career. When I told him about the kidney donation, I was upfront about it, didn't want secrets. He was thoughtful. "That must have been incredibly difficult," he said, "both the surgery and the aftermath." "It was, still is sometimes." "Are you worried about your remaining kidney? Long-term health implications?" "Sometimes. I get monitored regularly. So far, everything's fine. But yes, there's always that background worry." "I can't imagine making that kind of sacrifice. You must have really loved him." "I thought I did. Turns out I loved who I thought he was, not who he actually was." "His loss," David said simply. "And selfishly, I'm glad it didn't work out with him. Otherwise, I wouldn't get to have dinner with you." It was a nice moment. Not earth-shattering, not overwhelming passion. Just nice. Human connection, mutual respect, the beginning of something that might become more. I'm not rushing into anything. I'm being careful, protective of myself in ways I wasn't before. But I'm also trying to stay open. Trying not to let James's betrayal close me off to future possibilities. It's hard. Every time someone gets close, I wonder, are they seeing me, or are they seeing what I can give them? Are they interested in building something mutual, or am I just solving another problem for someone? But I'm trying, that's all I can do. Last week was the 2-year anniversary of the surgery. I spent it doing something I'd been avoiding, I wrote James a letter, not to send, just to write, to process. Dear James, 2 years ago today I gave you my kidney. I want you to know that despite everything, I don't regret that you're alive. I'm glad you're healthy. I'm glad you get to be a father. I'm glad my sacrifice meant something, even if not in the way I intended. But I also want you to know the cost. I live every day knowing I'm physically compromised because of you. Knowing I made myself medically vulnerable for someone who couldn't wait 6 weeks after surgery to leave. Knowing I gave you the life you're living with someone else. You said you felt obligated to me, that you couldn't build a relationship on debt. But James, relationships are built on sacrifice, on choosing each other, on giving to each other, on mutual care. You just didn't want to sacrifice for me the way I sacrificed for you. I hope your daughter inherits your kidney. I hope she never needs it, but if she does, I hope she gets something good out of what I gave. I hope there's some meaning in all this beyond just you getting what you wanted. I don't forgive you. Maybe someday I will, but not today. What you did, accepting a life-saving gift from someone you weren't sure you loved, then leaving at the first opportunity, that's not forgivable yet. But I'm learning to forgive myself, for not seeing clearly, for valuing the wrong things, for confusing sacrifice with love. I'm moving forward, slowly, carefully, with more wisdom than I had before. You'll live the rest of your life with my kidney. I'll live the rest of mine with the knowledge that I gave it to someone who didn't value it. But I'm still here, still standing, still saving lives, still capable of love even if I'm more careful about who I give it to. That's more than you gave me, and that's enough. Sarah. I burned the letter after I wrote it, watched it turn to ash in my fireplace. A symbolic gesture, maybe, but it felt right. James Crawford got my kidney, but he doesn't get to keep my future. He doesn't get to keep my hope. He doesn't get to keep my capacity for love and trust and openness. Those are mine, and I'm choosing to keep them, protect them, and eventually share them with someone who deserves them. And that brings us to the end of Sarah's story, a tale not of heartwarming sacrifice, but of betrayal, loss, and the painful lessons learned when generosity meets selfishness. Her journey reminds us that giving isn't always rewarded, that sacrifice isn't always valued, and that sometimes the greatest act of love reveals the deepest absence of it in return. What would you have done in Sarah's position? Should she have waited longer before donating? And how do we protect ourselves while still remaining open to love and generosity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe for more real stories about love, loss, betrayal, and the courage to rebuild after heartbreak. Thank you for listening. Until next time, remember, true love is measured not by what you're willing to sacrifice, but by whether that sacrifice is valued, honored, and reciprocated. Give generously, but give wisely.